Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature John Beyer, who chronicles his early life in alcohol addiction, but his entrepreneurial spirit that through several decades of being in a family of alcoholics, he became an alcoholic, but his tenacity, resilience as an entrepreneur, he's always thinking ahead of, but he had to work through his personal alcoholism to become a very successful business person in the moving and storage business. He chronicles his life in a book that's called Live a Little Better, and he has a great story of resilience, overcoming. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from John?
As you listen to John today, you think back, he was born with a personality, and it shows through. So this personality to me helped him overcome, go to AA, commit to that, and through what it takes to overcome alcohol and your past. John also said in this podcast, you never know what crises will teach you. So we learn from whatever we have to go through, and we persevere through it. Could see that in John.
As with John, adversity can be a learning experience or opportunity. It's a matter of what we make of it. Let's listen and learn together. John has a great story. John, it is good to have you with us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in learning just enough about your past of what things used to be. And as you have acknowledged and written about, alcoholism as a part of your past, and you've overcome that, and you're right now a very successful business person. But our listeners are going to be very interested in knowing just enough about the past of maybe how the alcoholism occurred, but then more importantly, how did you overcome that to become the successful person you are? John, welcome aboard. Great to have you with us.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you.
We're doing great. John, can you give our listeners, I called it maybe a 30,000 foot summary of
Sure.
what the past was and maybe why that past occurred?
Sure. My parents, my dad was a very successful businessman who unfortunately drank it all away. And my mom became an alcoholic as well. And we had a fall from grace. They had a few bucks and they were doing very well at one time. And we wound up moving into Lafrac City. That's how the book begins. I moved in there right after my 8th birthday. when I was 8 years old. My parents had gotten separated as a matter of course, because that's what happens in alcoholic families. Everything dissolves. And overnight we were broke. And there were eviction notices and child protective services coming to the house. They were afraid I was being abused. I was never abused. I was neglected. There was fights. There were fights. There were all kinds of insanity. I have two older sisters. They remember it differently than me and in different ways. It's very interesting dynamic there with that. And it was really very tough. I mean, waking up every day and looking, your first thing you're doing is looking to see if they put another eviction notice on your door. And in fact, I slept, my bed was right by the front door in the hallway when you first walked in. I didn't have my own room. I was relegated to that. My sisters had their own room together, and then my father was gone at this point. And yeah, the alcoholism took hold with them. And I vowed that I was never going to let it, destroy me. But the first time I drank, or one of the first times I drank, um, I remember doing shotguns of beer with my buddies in the hallways of Lafayette City in Queens, New York, right off the Long Island Expressway. And we're doing a shotgun of beer where you tap open the bottom of the can after puncturing a hole in it, and it gushes down your throat. And I remember they're spilling it. I'm trying to catch it because I'm already done. I just drank differently than anybody from the beginning. Whether or not it's genetic or not, or learned behavior, I don't know. I don't care. I have it. I wound up drinking. I had car accidents. I was an alcoholic almost instantaneously. At 21, my sister dragged me to a GI doctor, and the doctor, I had the test done before he met me, and he brings me in for the results. He looks at me and he says, "You're John Beyer. We were expecting somebody 80 years old. I was 21. What are you doing to your stomach?" So I left with a prescription of drugs there to make me feel better. And I had car accident after car accident, and I got very lucky. I knew of Alcoholics Anonymous. My uncle was a recovering alcoholic. My mother tried to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, she didn't drink the last few years of her life. My dad wound up dying when I was 21, and my mom got cancer, stopped drinking, and for the last 3 years of her life, she lived a nice life. She was who she really was at her core, but she died a long, slow, horrible death of lung cancer. And it was pour me, pour me, pour me a drink. And on March 31st, 1986, when I was just turned 26 years old, somehow I found myself walking into an AA meeting. And I went to AA that day, and I never left. And one day at a time, I've stayed sober. This March 31st will be 40 years. And I married my high school sweetheart. She's in the book. She's contributed to the book. I wouldn't let her see what I had written until the book was printed. And she came to me several times and said, "You never told me that. I know her 48 years. You never told me that." And then I kept thinking to myself, imagine if she knew what's not in the book. And uh, yeah, no, we're still together. And we wound up, I wound up starting a moving and storage business. I met the guy, my buddy, he was a drinking buddy in the bar. He had just gotten out of prison not too long ago. um, Nothing terribly he did. He stole some credit cards from the mail system, so it was a federal thing, and he did some time over it. And unfortunately, he went to prison for a while and just got out, and he wanted to hustle and make money, so he put an ad in the local little newspaper, penny saver type ad, and he encouraged me to do the same thing. And I started Men on the Move 40 years ago. Men on the Move has grown into be one of the larger, it's the largest independently owned first generation moving company on Long Island. And that's a big deal because there's a lot of moving that goes on. Um, uh, and my wife and I built it together. My wife's the controller of the company. I call my wife my controller with and without the P.
Yes, I understand how that is very definitely. John, at the as you think back on an early age, not to dwell on it, but how old were you at the inception of the eviction notices, the first signs of alcoholism, and so forth?
8. I was 8 years old,
Yeah.
and although the alcoholism was even before that, it was when my parents were still together. I remember they had a physical fight, and they took a rocks glass, and they were fighting over the drink in the rocks glass, and my father slammed it against the wall, and the rocks glass didn't break. It got embedded into the sheetrock, and the fluid was still in there the next morning, stuck in the
Wow.
wall high up. I remember that vision, and that can happen if the glass is that strong, and it was. And so no, it was around me, and we became so poor. We became really poor. I mean, I had holes in my sneakers where I'd have to put baseball cards, the ones my buddies were throwing out. I would hide them off to the side, and they're doubles, and you know, sneak them away and put them in the bottom of my sneakers so that I wasn't, getting a bloody sole. And then I would open up the refrigerator, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and there was nothing in the refrigerator. There was a piece of Kraft cheese that had mold on the edges, and I would pick away at the edges to eat the middle of it. Sometimes it was that bad, and I mentioned Child Protective Services came and they did their job. I have to say that I always thought that in retrospect, as an adult, I always felt like those people who were there for and were doing their job. And when I was about, this is in the book, when I was about 11 years old, I, I I just went outside and there's a grocery store across the street. And I looked at what was going on in the parking lot. And I decided to help the women with babies or older women with their packages, putting them in the trunk and taking them from the cart. And hopefully that they would give me a tip. And they did. I started to get a quarter here and there and so on and so forth. One person even gave me 50 cents at the time. This is a lot of money. And I'm 11 years old doing this. And all of a sudden, there's this big guy standing there. I'm doing this for hours, and I'm actually rallying up the carts and putting them in the corral because that was efficient to let the cars come in and out faster. They were in the way, the carts. People would just leave them, astray. And this guy comes up to me. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just trying to make some money." He goes, "Do you know what he did?" He turned out to be the manager. And at the end of the day, he came out and gave me $2. And that was an incredibly powerful moment for me because I had created my first job and I did it by myself. And I was 11 years old and I wanted pizza and I had pizza that night to feed myself. And I never forgot that. It was incredibly empowering. And I started working. I wound up having 3 jobs by the time I'm 13, delivering pizza for that same pizza place, working at the local drugstore, um, and the local luncheonette. And I made like 100, $20 a week between those 3 jobs at the age of 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, back in 1972, 73. Can you imagine that?
I am tracking your age as you're explaining this, and you mentioned the points of 8, 11, 13, 21, and 26 years old. Were you a full-fledged, if that's the appropriate term, alcoholic when you were 26 years old?
No, I would say when I was 26, oh yes, unquestionably. Yes, I say they talk about crossing the line. I'd say I crossed the line when I was 17 or 18 years old, where I was going to drink. Drinking became normal every day. In fact, I remember going into, because I came such an alcoholic environment, my dad wasted his business, drank it away, and um, he wound up becoming a local loan shark and bookmaker in the bar. And he was working off the books because he was collecting disability insurance, which he should have gotten because he had heart attacks because he didn't take care of himself. So he's working to make a few bucks off the books as a bartender. He was a big shot there because he was very bright. He was kind of like the big fish in a little pond. And I would take 2 trains to go see him when I was 13, and I was tapping kegs and carrying up beer and stocking the shelves. So I was always in this alcoholic environment from as long as I knew. So when I walked into my first AA meeting, it felt like a relief. It was like, people really don't drink. I had no idea that people didn't drink. I thought everybody drank. Who knew? And then there are normal drinkers, not just the people in the bar and the people in AA. There's a group in the middle, which is the majority of society. So yeah, that was an awakening for me. Like, people really, at the age of 26, I really did not understand that most people didn't drink alcohol.
Yeah. As you're explaining, I'm tracking that a very poignant moment in your life was the man that helped you earn some money at 11 years old. So that kind of stayed with you mentally. But then the counterposing, if that's the appropriate term, was that you had other things operative in your mind. You became a full-fledged alcoholic. Is there another turning point? What was the, I guess maybe, John, I'm asking,
Okay.
what was it that caused you to enter AA, and how old were you
So,
at that point?
so I had developed quite a work ethic, obviously. I was, I've always had, I still do have today, and I'll be 66 in a few weeks. And I'm still working and doing tremendous things, a lot of stuff. And the I had my drinking on January 6th, 1986, I lost a very good friend. And that friend drank in the bar. I love this guy. He's in the book. I don't want to use his real name. He was he was older than me, incredibly good looking. He had a beautiful wife, hot girlfriend too. Hate to say it at the same time. Very macho guy. He was Golden Gloves boxer. So he could knock you out, and he had chiseled features on top of it. And he could sing, which I like to sing too on top of it. He could even sing a little bit, SOB. And he died that day, and I went on a bender. I drank every day for the next until March 31st. I didn't draw a sober breath. And I managed to show up for work most days, but I didn't show up for work one day. What happened is that I came to, and the sky was a medium blue. I felt disoriented. I knew I was in my apartment. My parents are long gone. Amy's still kind of around in the picture. She was losing her patience with me. And I go to the window and I look outside, and the sky is a medium blue. And I look at the clock, and I don't know if it's AM or PM. Can you imagine not knowing if it's AM
Wow.
or PM? I'm 26 years old, just turned 26. And I'm just that disoriented, that screwed up. And something just washed over me. He said, John, you need help. And I knew of AA, and I called up and I said, I'm going to go to AA. I called up and found out where the AA meeting was. And so I got a notice in the mail that I needed to get something from the library. And I had to go to the library. And I called Amy prior to leaving and saying, I'm going to go to AA tonight. I'm going to get help. So I made that big commitment. I made that big commitment to go, that big statement. That's a big deal when you admit it to somebody else, you know. And I walk into the library, and it's loud. There was a school class there, little kids, and they were running around, and they were loud. You know, they were kindergartners or first graders. I couldn't wait to get out because I'm red and I'm jumpy, and I can't wait to go to the bar to get lunch. Yeah, it's gonna be mostly liquid lunch. And I go and I get what I get at the library, and I'm walking out, and there's a rack of books, all the same book, and it was on DWIs. And now I had never gotten a DWI. Back then, they didn't give them out like they do today. I drove drunk thousands of times, and I got pulled over dozens of times, never got a DWI. Crazy. But something compelled me to open that book. Why? I don't know. I had never gotten a DWI. I inadvertently just walk over to the rack, pick up a book, 400-page book, paperback, open it up. So the one page this much ink on the page that talked about how Alcoholics Anonymous was the most successful program known for the disease of alcoholism. I closed the book, put it back, and I made sure I went to my first meeting that night. I felt as if it was divine intervention, to tell you the truth, where God said, enough, this sick puppy's had enough. Let me give him a little nudge over here. And give me quite a nudge. And I'm not overly religious. I'm not religious at all. I am spiritual to a certain extent, but I don't spew, oh, thank God. And yeah, that's not me. It's within me. I want to give back to everything I've achieved and everything I've done and everything I know about alcoholism, about autism, about finances. I want to share that my experience, my strength, and my hope with people so that they can benefit from it and make their paths a little bit easier.
I appreciate what you just said, the inspiration, divine inspiration in this case, that intervened, and you want to move forward by passing forward your life experience and so forth. And John, as you think in hindsight, 26 or so years old when you started your recovery, are you, in hindsight, totally recovered from? Can you socially drink? Are you totally done drinking? How would you categorize your, I don't know, tolerance for, propensity for, whatever the term, alcohol?
There's another old, I'm considering an old timer now. There's another old timer in my group who said the world record for sobriety is 24 hours. And none of us can take it for granted, anyway beyond that. And I usually go to 4 meetings a week at 7 o'clock in the morning. Not on Zoom. I prefer the physical brick and mortar meetings. And I go there and I always end my share by saying, I begin my share by saying the program works if you work it. And I say, thank you for letting me share. I said, I started my day with an AA meeting, which greatly increases my chances of not drinking today. And then everybody have a nice day. And that's it. And no, I intend on going. I cannot drink. I will not drink. I have no intentions of drinking. When I proposed to my wife, who knew it was coming at that point, when I proposed marriage to her, I said to her, there's 2 things you need to know about me. Number one is that I'm an alcoholic and I didn't say I'm not going to drink again. I said I intend on going to meetings for the rest of my life. That's what I said to her. And number 2, I'm a restless soul, so hang on to your seat. It's going to be quite a ride. And she would tell you that it's been quite a ride.
So, John,
Sobriety's enabled me to do that.
Yep. I am interpreting you, or I'm processing you as being, when you set your mind to something, you can be a very, very determined person. You're a very successful entrepreneur with your storage business, but when you set your mind to AA, you are not in just your big toes, so to speak. You are totally committed. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yes, it is. It is.
So for the listener who is at the point of thinking, well, I've got to do something different, but they may not be totally committed. Is it your mentoring? Is it your inspiration that, man, you have got to make a decision? It's not until you make that decision that you're going to have a life change?
Yes, you have to own it yourself. Nobody can tell you. You can't do it for anybody else but yourself. There has to be a voice within you. I mean, it turned out to be 6 a.m., by the way. And, but that day, I wasn't doing it for anybody but me. Amy was always wanting, and my sisters were always, trying to help me and do the younger brother. But no, I did it for me. So you have to be ready. And it's not just, AA is not just about stopping drinking. It helps you grow and evolve. There are 12 steps in the program that people have heard about. And it addresses your insecurities and your self-esteem and other issues that enable you to say, like I would say, in business, I've taken risks because I've addressed some of those issues in the program. because I was not afraid. So, and I recognize a direct correlation there that. Without the program, I never would have succeeded in business the way I've succeeded in business. My sister says to me, "You act like you take risks." I said, "I don't see it as risk. You recognize it as a risk. I don't think you take these incredible risks." I said, "I actually don't see the risk here. Explain to me the risk." And it becomes hard to articulate the real risk in something when I've laid it out the way I see it. It's hard for her to understand that, but she's come to understand it because it's been one after the other, frankly.
I want to take a very brief moment to tell you about myself, the Cooper Culture, a certified veteran-owned small business. I am a retired lieutenant colonel serving the Air Force for 22 years as an F-4 pilot, commander. I have 300 combat missions. I specialize in executive leadership training, team building, and workplace culture, where we help businesses to develop a culture of loyalty, trust, and by developing personality traits and personal strengths, we can help identify those traits that support the company's objectives. We do this through half-day and all-day training shops. I'm also a public speaker where I welcome the opportunity to speak with your group to help you develop your team to the point where people are loyal and they know exactly how they fit in the organization and contribute to your strategic objectives. Through that, you will have a very profitable company and a psychologically safe space where people know they can freely discuss everything about the company themselves, and we are always working together to progress. Contact me at ron@thecooperculture.com. Our website is thecooperculture.com. Look forward to the opportunity to speak with your group, work with your group, to take your group to the next level to where we soar together. Let's work together. Let me build on the word risk that I am correlating when you mentioned it could be an alcohol, it could be a 24-hour turnaround, so to speak, or in other words, say, it's almost daily. I'm interpreting you're battling alcoholism. But when you, in the context of risk, what I'm processing with you, your mind may have been saying, hey, if I don't commit to this, I mean, cold turkey, so to speak, if that's an appropriate term, to stop drinking right now, I may go back into it and I'm in and out, in and out, and in and out. Were you the type person that you made a total abstinence decision that no more drinks of any kind?
No, I didn't. I actually said I'm just going to take it for a day at a time. And what really kept me going in the beginning was that you're there voluntarily. Nobody's making you go. Back then, it only cost you $1 to go to a meeting. You just throw you. Now it's up to $2 to pass the basket for the coffee and the donuts. And what I really attracted me, and AA calls itself a program of attraction, is that nobody's lecturing you. It's there if you want it. I wanted what these people had. These people were happy. They weren't just falling down drunks. We had CEOs, we had teachers, we had people checking out the groceries, and the guy checking out the groceries was more sober than the CEO. You follow what I'm saying? He was helping the CEO.
Yep.
Because the CEO couldn't keep his act together because, first of all, the CEO thought he had all the answers. And yeah, then why are you sitting here? If you had all the answers, you wouldn't be here. And the cashier could tell the CEO that, and the CEO had no answer. So there's that, and there's nothing. And then once you get it, the most rewarding things in life that I've come to experience, when you get it, we have an expression that says you have to give it away to keep it. And you share what you have with somebody, and you watch their lives turn around a day at a time, and their relationship with their spouse gets better, their job gets better, they get a raise, they get a promotion, suddenly they're driving a nicer car, they're cleaner, they're healthier, they lost a few pounds, they go back to the gym, they have a better relationship with their children. It's the best feeling in the world to be witness to that.
I'm processing what you're saying also, John, that there was a period in your life, who knows, the first 26, 30 years or so, that at least in comparison to who you are now, you were a loner, but then the AA was a team, to where it was through the team that you became the non-alcoholic. You've always been an entrepreneurial minded person, but am I processing what you're saying correctly?
No, I had friends. I've always had friends. I have different groups of friends. I have my old childhood friends who I didn't drink too much with them. And then I did separate from them when I got sober. And then I have my high school friends, none of whom were alcoholics, although we went through the disco era. We all thought we were like John Travolta there, it was on my album
Sure.
wall. Yeah. And those are really my good buddies. Those people were in my wedding party, and I'm still close friends with everybody from our wedding party from 38 years ago. I mean, so I wouldn't call me a loner, but I always had my own path I was going down. I mean, I drank my way out of college. I have 30 something college credits. And I just met somebody in the program who's the most educated person I've ever met in my life. Two doctorates and a master's, Harvard, MIT type stuff. And they're new in the late 50s. And I hope this person gets the program and stays with it because they're brilliant. But education doesn't mean anything about it. But no, I wasn't really a loner like that. But I've always been a gregarious type person. I was a bartender for years. You can't be quiet and shy when you're a bartender.
A more accurate term may be resolved, that you've been resolved all your life. You just, at 26 and beyond, you just made choices that maybe separated you from the previous group of friends, something of that effect.
Yeah, yeah. I've always been very driven. I'm driven. I'm competitive. I know at one point, I mean, at my moving company, in my early sobriety, it was all ego. I remember I'm sober a year or two, a few years, and I put my new logo on the truck as big as it could possibly fit on the truck. And oh yeah, it was also good for advertising.
Yeah, good.
John, as I'm listening to your story, I think I just sense that you were born with a personality that is, just to come out. You have that within you. You've always had that within your soul.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've always been. I used to sing. I sang in elementary school. I sang in middle school. I was supposed to skip eighth grade, and my parents were in terrible shape. You're 13 then, 12 then. I was telling you that my work history then, and they were really, really. There was incredible insanity then, and this is when my attitude changed. Um, they said to me, John, you're not doing well in math. If you fail math, you may not skip. Well, I wound up failing math. There was nobody worrying about my homework or anything like that, or studying for tests. So they call me and they say, John, you can't, you're not going to skip. You're going to have to do full eighth grade now. So therefore, let's set your schedule for next year. So they were keeping me in all the accelerated classes. And I said, why are you keeping me in accelerated classes if there's no value? There's no value because I was in those classes just in order to skip. If I'm not skipping, I want to take it easy. There was like a light switch that went off that day. And the counselor did his best to argue with me. And I won, but lost. The only one that I stayed in accelerated was English. And I'm glad I did that, thank God. And I couldn't wait. I hated going to those other classes. I got nothing from them. And then by the ninth grade, became a high school dropout for a while. So my attitude changed so dramatically. I mean, your body's changing, hormones, a girlfriend, it's all in the book. Talk about how I lost my virginity. My daughter read my book. And I called her up one day and said, you reading my book? She goes, yes, I just read about how my father lost his virginity. Lovely. My daughter's 35 now. So, but it was part of the book that was, it's in there for a reason. It frames the whole situation and stuff, the time. So Yeah, I don't know. I'm very lucky to have found the program and become successful. I made most of my money in real estate and the recurring income from real estate. There's that book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that
Right.
book and I wound up it's a very famous book. And I wound up really, it's a handbook on how to become wealthy if you want to become wealthy. That's how I look at it today. I recommend it to young entrepreneurs, but if you're drinking and getting high, you're not going to go anywhere. Live a Little Better, my book right here, is not a get rich book. It's more of a human interest story. It's more about survival. It's more to inspire people who have faced adversity. And I know there are a lot of stories out there that are like mine and people who have had greater adversity and who have achieved more. Mine is just another story. My daughter is the one who talked me into writing the book.
Well, John, I will bring this in for a landing, but a couple thoughts come to mind. Live a little better. I am picturing as this conversation continues, you may have had to work through different adversities, but you always found the positive. Look, you were
Yeah.
looking for, you always found the positive in. And I think that's one of the takeaways from this conversation that one of your life stories might be. You look for, you will find the positive, albeit it may take a while to process everything, but you look for, you will find that positive. Is that kind of a life lesson?
That's the life lesson there, because even if you can't help yourself, you can help somebody else. I mean, I remember Hubert Humphrey was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and his thing at the end there was that he just wanted to help other people, with his information about his disease, so that they could try to ward off, dying from the same disease that he had, and I found that noble.
John, you mentioned a term somewhat in passing, but I want to ask you somewhat personally. You mentioned the word autism,
Yes.
and we personally do not think of that as a disability. It is an attribute, but would you consider coming back on for another episode and discussing autism with us?
I, I
We
would.
quite honestly have a 19-year-old granddaughter who is high spectrum autistic. I just sense there are other autistic or neurodiverse people who need hope.
There's a lot of neurodiversibility people out there.
Yes.
The neurodiversibility, yes, and I would be glad to speak to that. I have a lot to say about that. Yes.
Thank you, John. That is a topic I would like to pursue with our listeners because, as you just said, neurodiversibility seems to be, I don't know if it's on the upswing, but it is more prevalent now in my life than it has been any time in the past. I think our listeners can learn a lot about that. And as we look toward that episode with you, I want to tell our listeners I am looking for and hope to find employers who are willing to work with and adapt to those who are neurodiverse. I just personally think that is a very untapped resource.
I'd be glad to do that. I'd really welcome that opportunity.
John, thank you so much. Let's schedule another time where we can devote ourselves to neurodiversity, and we're going to help advance that community going forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper Culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.